Hi there, welcome back to the channel. So today's bass playing day. I'm going to track bass with my Gibson Victory bass. So I've got it connected to the Fender Deluxe going into the 4x12, and I'm not going to record with it like that, but I was just going to play the part with it. The reason I don't record with a guitar amp, with a bass guitar, is that these speakers, the voice coil on them, the magnet structure, is not made for the heavy duty, frequencies that you get when you're playing bass guitar. Especially when I play bass, I get too thumpy with it, too big, too hard. I like to, really, and you'll blow up your guitar speakers really quickly. You need a tougher magnet for bass. They don't usually, they use all the same magnets, but they also use some stronger magnets and a stronger basket structure and higher wattage capabilities so that you don't burn up your voice coil, blow the gaskets and everything. So I don't do this very often just because I don't want to blow up my amp and blow up my, not the amp, but blow up the speaker drivers. I think that the Zoom does pretty well with the guitar and bass effects, especially the bass effects. The guitar effects are fine, they're okay. I like recording my own, but the bass is really good, mainly because you get bass tone and you don't have to worry about tons of compression. You don't have to worry about levels. When I was trying to record, I had an Ampeg 15-inch cabinet, and I used a V2 head with it, an Ampeg V2 head with it for a while, different heads, and it sounded fantastic in the room, but I really struggled to mic it and get it right. It was probably the hardest thing I tried to do was recording bass guitar, just the levels would go up and down, and I think the Zoom would have done a better job. That was back when I was doing analog and I had outboard compression. And I just found it a little trickier than you would think to get good levels, because if you try to play something really low or really heavy, that peaks and everything else is quiet, and it peaks in a way that's unusable, like it kind of like surges with so much bass. So bass can be tricky. That's why with me being a home recorder, amateur recorder, I feel better with these with using the effects that are built in, just the bass effects. And I usually use, so if you go to effect, this is what I typically do with bass. I'm always up for trying new things, but this is what I've kind of settled on. So you hit the effect button and you will see the algorithm bass. You just kind of scroll through until it's after dual mic. Let's see, it goes, yeah, it's after mic. It's between mic, it's after, after mic. Okay, so the patch that I use is number 5, but it starts with 0. There's an SVT, doesn't sound like one. A bassman doesn't really sound like one. A hard key, I don't know much about those. Then there's like a Super B, don't know enough about that to know if that sounds correct or not. And then the Sans one, that sounds pretty close, just not to my liking. And then the Tube Pre just seems the most neutral, sort of sounds like a tube amp, like an Ampeg tube amp for bass, which is typically my favorite. It sounds more Ampeg to me than the SVT does. That sounds, I don't know, it's just kind of brittle sounding. There's one called Attack. There's a Wah talk bass, that's kind of cool. Melody, this one's called Melody, I don't know what that means. Slap. When I recorded Aaron for his musical project, Aaron played bass down in my deck chair. He used slap, even though he doesn't slap. It just had a tone, maybe some upper mids that made it cut better. I don't know. So just find one you like. I use Tube Pre just because it sounds like the way I picture bass guitar sounding on my stuff. Now, as far as bass guitar influences, this all started wanting the bass to sound a certain way, and the reason I got into this particular bass was because of Geezer Butler. Not because he played one of these, but just when I heard the tone that he got on the first couple of Black Sabbath records, especially the second one. Like War Pigs is a perfect example. I believe his bass is off to one side, perhaps the left side, And he plays up high on the neck, you know, with his fingers. And there's something about the guys who play up high that really gets me going, gets me inspired. The other one that I think of off the top of my head is Peter Hook from Joy Division / New Order. Especially the stuff he did in New Order. He got really into some really melodic stuff, like The Perfect Kiss, you know, where he plays really high. And he played Gibson basses a lot of times, Hamer basses. And so he gets a particular kind of tone, and he has a playing style that I'm attracted to. The other one that's similar in style, you know, like play a lot of high stuff, use the pick a lot, is Youth from Killing Joke, another favorite of mine. Very melodic player. And then of course Paul McCartney for like being super melodic. And so I like doing that. And I like some of that 60s style bass playing where there's big melodic kind of phrases going on that usually follow a pattern. I think of like the way Chips Moman played from the 60s and all the, you know, all those amazing bass players. Unbelievable. I think it's an incredible instrument, especially when you see what it's done in like R&B and soul and jazz, like, you know, some incredible stuff. But for me, it's down to like the post-punk guys. Finn from Susie and the Banshees, Youth, Peter Hook, Geezer Butler. He's from a little before those guys, but those are the tones that I dig. And I like the bass to sound like it's a melodic, you know, has a melodic structure. Okay, so let me just show you what this thing sounds like. The Gibson Victory bass is really cool. I stumbled into this in Atlanta, Georgia from a guy who had been out playing for years and years and years. I got it for $400, and now these go for like $1,100, $1,200. I don't know, they go for a lot more now. This one, it's just a freaking monster. I mean, look at the neck on this thing. It's just nuts. This massive piece of wood. It's so heavy. I can't remember how much it weighs, maybe 14, 15 pounds. I mean, it's a monster. The guy that sold it to me joked around and said that if you don't like playing bass with it, it works great for bashing in skulls. So, you know, it's just one of those kind of monster basses. Chris Novoselic plays these sometimes. And John Wetton from King Crimson and Asia played one. I think he was like kind of the poster boy for this amp. I mean, for this guitar. They used him on the, you know, like the marketing brochures and whatever. I think. I could be wrong. All right, so let's just see what tone I'm getting here. Wait, I've got this connected to the Zoom, so I'm going to plug in directly to the Zoom, but this one I had connected to the Deluxe just to kind of show you what I was going to do with it. And I don't know if I'll capture the take I use, but I'll at least give you a feel for what tracking the bass is going to be like. Okay, so the part, you know, it's like the song goes E to D at the beginning, so I was thinking of just doing like a low E, like, and then picking up the D here and doing a sliding kind of passing note or notes down to the D up here. So it's like, and then it has another part that's like, idea. Now, I'm going to kill this. Unplug here. Then we're going to plug in here. I won't worry about checking tuning because I just tuned it before I turn the camera on. But ordinarily, I get pretty... I like to check the tuning a lot just because why not, you know. Now, the way this bass works, it has one pickup instead of two. But you get variance in tone by going from series to parallel. I probably should have demonstrated that before I turned off the amp, but I've got it kind of in the cleaner, kind of clear tone series. When you lift up the switch here to the up position, you know, like towards the guitar, towards the upper part of the guitar, like a Les Paul, that makes it parallel, which gives it a little fatter, kind of like buzzier, heavier tone. And you could get some pretty gnarly sounds, you know, if you had it dialed into an amp, and so you could get some really like thick stuff going on. It could be really cool. But I'm going to leave it kind of the more neutral, you know, moderate mode for my purposes. The other thing I wanted to mention that could really help somebody out, I think, because it's helped me out knowing that it exists, and I think somebody's mentioned it once in on the comments in one of the videos, is that these TRS type cables and guitar cables, instrument cables, can slip out of this Zoom input, which really, you know, is not good. So you could be in the middle of the take, you know, that's like you're doing a tough part that really demands, you know, a lot, and you make a mistake, you have it slip out of there, and you lose your take, which is a real drag. So I don't really have any solutions for it beyond just see, like, it popped out twice while I was doing this. I mean, it just doesn't want to, you know, here's the cable, and then you push it in. And you've got to really make sure, like I usually put my thumb here and my two fingers here and pull it towards the machine to really make sure it's made full contact, because it'll look like it's connected, but you can see like this kind of slight separation, you know, and I can see it like, oh, and then as I kind of just sort of slipped it out a little bit, it pushed it the rest of the way. There's some kind of like, because they made it a neutral connector where it could accept multiple different things, I think there's like some light, it doesn't fully grab the inserted part of the cable. It's like letting that slip out. So the solution is to pull it towards you. You could bring it under, like, see how I'm like, could bring it under like you do on a guitar, but I noticed that actually made it pop back out again. So for me, the way those Nutrix connectors are, the solution is just to be aware of it and like really push it in, and then just make sure it's not like slipping out of there at any point. You know, you want to make sure of that, because that would be ruin a tape. You know, sucks. So I hate that. All right, so I'm going to try to track this. I'll be right back. Okay, as you can see, or as you can hear maybe, since I turned the camera off, it started raining. Which brings up another cool thing about tracking directly into the Zoom using the Zoom effects as opposed to miking something. It doesn't matter if it rains, doesn't matter if it makes noise, I can stay here all night long and continue to work on takes as long as I want to. I'm going to show you the beginnings of it. But I will warn you that with bass, this is tough for me. It's not my first instrument by a long shot. And I think that bass players, the other one I thought of that I really like is Nick Beggs from Kajagoogoo. And he plays one of those Chapman sticks, and he's very melodic and does like a lot of really neat stuff. And so I want to become a better bass player like some of those guys that really put so much thought into the melodic nature of bass guitar. But I'm not quite there yet. And so I find that tracking bass sometimes gets me a little bit more than guitar does. I don't know why. And a lot of times my hand gets really tired. So it usually takes me like a full evening to get like the take that I want. And with bass, cutting in is not so hard. I don't know why exactly, but it just seems to cut in the easiest. You don't like hear it the way you do with other instruments. So if you have to do a punch in, sometimes I like punch in with my foot. And then the zoom, I should do a little episode once where we talk about punching in and, you know, auto punching. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and track since it's raining anyway. We'll see what happens. And if I don't get a take, I'll show you the cleanup process. And we'll play it back on this thing here. All right. All right, here we go. Goofed that already. The levels are all whack. You just check my levels real quick on the pan EQ. Okay, thank you. And here we go. We'll try to get it closer so we don't have to wait so long for the start.